healthcare system is broken, but it doesn't have to be. This is Revenue Cycle Optimized by Infinix Healthcare. We discuss the latest challenges in the revenue cycle space and provide actionable tips on how to overcome them at your organization.
Welcome everyone to another episode. I'm your host, Stuart Newsome, and as always, we're here to explore the latest challenges and innovations in revenue cycle management. And today we have a great conversation lined up for you, one that gets to the heart of how AI is reshaping the way healthcare providers manage their revenue cycles. Our topic today is why AI needs to think for the future of revenue cycle management. And we've seen automation play a role in RCM for many years now. But as the landscape grows, it becomes more complex, with payer rules constantly changing, denials increasing, as well as administrative burdens piling up. So it's becoming very clear that automation alone really isn't enough. And AI has to go beyond just processing tasks. It has to think, adapt, and even solve problems. Well, joining me today is someone who has been at the forefront of this transformation. It's Jaideep Tandon, a CEO of Infinix. And he's recently shared his insights in this very topic in a His Talk article. And today we'll dive deeper into those ideas. So we'll explore what he's hearing from healthcare leaders, where AI is making the biggest impact, and what organizations need to do to stay ahead. So Jaideep, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. This is exciting. I know you started this series a while back. I used to be a frequent guest, but now you find more experts and I don't get called as often. So I'm very excited to be back.
Oh, well, we'll have you more and more, believe me.
Oh no, you got better experts now. So
Right. Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. I think it's very enjoyable. I think we're just giving actual insights to a lot of our clients and customers, as well as future customers. I've had a lot of feedback on the impact that it's had in not only educational, but also just kind of where the industry is going. So, JD, we'll dive right in. Your article, as I mentioned earlier, with His Talk, highlights this shift from basic automation to AI that thinks. And I like that term that you used, thinks. So what are the biggest trends you're seeing in RCM today, and how are providers reacting to AI's role in it?
yes. So what we're starting to see, I mean, sort of taking a step back, the one thing constant in the world of RCM is change. There's changing payer guidelines as you're entering new markets. There's local rules and regulations that you need to adapt to, or local patient sensibilities you need to adapt to. So there's always market forces that are changing the dynamic of RCM. So against that backdrop, what we really look at is RCM is a complex problem and it's going to require solutions that are sort of out of the box. And today, what AI helps us do is bring in that cognition that lacked previously. So, in core automation, you can deploy robotic process automation and do a task repetitively, but often you would see, because of this changing landscape, those automations wouldn't have the efficacy you would expect them to have, and invariably human intervention was required. And very often what we see is when automation breaks, it breaks spectacularly, and that's where then humans need to step in and are behind the eight ball. So with where I see AI's role is leveraging this cognition ability, right? And that's really has the potential to be a game changer. But we also live in the reality of today's world that we have to look at these solutions and see where they seamlessly integrate into workflows that our customers have around RCM. They aren't something that are just a silver bullet that can just going to solve every problem out there. You hear often a lot of people talking about, okay, RCM is going to get completely disrupted by AI. I believe AI will have a major impact, but I don't see an overnight disruption. I think it's about leveraging it in the right places and bringing organizations along for the ride.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just had a conversation earlier this morning with a potential client who stated exactly what you were just saying, or more or less experiential with what you were saying. Because one of his, and he was an RCM director, and one of his pain points is like, yeah, we've done automation, we've implemented automation throughout, but it seems like we're spending more time doing more work trying to make sure the automation is correct. And then when it breaks, well, guess what? We have to go back and make sure someone is there, correct it and fix it. So it's really been a very laborious process for them. So with that in mind, you pointed out in the article that RPA is great for repetitive tasks, but struggles when payer rules change or claims require problem solving. So, can you share an example of how this limitation affects healthcare providers in real world scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the very basic thing, you built an RPA bot to go check a payer website for, let's say, an authorization follow-up or an AR claim follow-up on and bring in the status of that. The simple login screen could change. And if it's not been built appropriately and adapted, that RPA isn't going to work. Certain screens, payers are constantly changing or updating their systems, and those could cause problems for basic RPA. So having sort of how we've approached that problem, right, is through AI agents supporting that, and then also attended automation where humans will be brought in at points where they are needed to help the automation continue versus it being a background process of working when it works and then completely failing when it stops working.
Right, right. I think I was at an HFMA conference a couple months ago, and I remember there was a panel, and one of the panelists was complaining about the fact that they had started some automation processes and put it in place. They even did a great job that they thought of outlining exactly what the issue was, training the bots, training the automation to handle it, and then still 18 months later, and a lot of dollars spent on the project, it still just wasn't off the ground because it just seemed that they didn't really see the issues that automation brought to the table without that proper planning, without that proper considerations that you just mentioned.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely, right. That's been the genesis of our revenue cycle agent platform, is to holistically bring in AI agents, automation, and human to work in sync to address the problems of RCM. So we've always looked at it that technology and such as AI can tremendously impact rev cycle operations, and we continue to stay at the forefront of that. But we also recognize that human intervention is going to be required, and we orchestrate that as part of our platform as well.
yeah, it's amazing work, that we're doing here that just, always seems to impress me. And we're doing things now that we really didn't seem possible 6 months ago. So the
Yeah.
technology is advancing very rapidly at a very fast pace, faster than I've ever seen it. And I've been doing this 29 years. And so it's moving very quickly.
Yeah,
Um,
it's exciting and sort of nerve-wracking at the same
right.
time, right? So you can't have blind spots, you can't be close to ideas. We're constantly evaluating new ways of doing things, and the one mentality we live with is really that somebody out there is doing it better, and we've got to learn from them and continue to adapt.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, one thing that hasn't changed is we find that denials top the list of issues. It's still a big burden, and denial prevention is a top challenge for revenue cycle teams. So your article mentions AI's ability to predict denials before they happen. So how does that work, and what impact have providers seen from that proactive approach? Kind of looking in a crystal ball and saying, hey, this is going to be denied. You need to correct the X, Y, and Z in order to get the optimal reimbursement.
Yeah, I think our teams are working tirelessly to sort of bring in the capabilities of AI across every function within our CM. And one of the sort of work we're doing early on today is looking at payer guidelines, clinical guidelines, medical necessity, having AI interpret those and looking at the claims and ensuring that they address some of the actual guidelines in order for those claims to be paid. And if there are gaps within it, flagging those and trying to correct them before they get submitted, but at the same time just flagging them for human intervention, because there's no point in having a claim go through with a high likelihood of denial because you're just spending more dollars to try and get it resubmitted, filing appeals and various other things. So having that sorted out on the front end is important, and this is early work we're doing in it, and we feel there's the from a adoption of AI, it's a very, very promising area to look at, which is very similar to what we're a little further along in doing in work in the prior authorization space, where we are again ingesting guidelines, and before an authorization is submitted, we are able to demonstrate that there is a likelihood of this authorization not getting approved, and hence requesting the clinician to provide additional medically necessary information to get that go through.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because prior authorizations like denials, are a major pain point in RCM. I always thought it was an oxymoron to have a prior authorization and then you have a denial later down that the prior authorization didn't quite pan out for whatever reason. You still get the denial anyway. And it's like, oh, isn't that the point of the prior authorization? So still major pain point. But while RPA can speed up that submission, it can't really adapt to payer requirements, right? So how is AI transforming the prior authorization process? You touched on this a little bit just then, but what results have organizations seen from this shift to AI transforming prior authorization processes?
So the impact to the organizations, how we measure our success, right, is to ensure we have an authorization on file determined for the particular procedure before the date of service. We want to make sure every patient that has been prescribed a certain care is given that care in a timely manner. And these restrictions that come through prior authorization should not be roadblocks to care. We understand and respect the reason prior authorizations exist in terms of utilization and ensuring patient safety and medical necessity, but the burden doesn't need to be on the patient or the provider rendering the care. So our approach really, like I said, just is have an auth on file before the date of service. Now, how do we go about doing that? Is the very first step is there a better way of determining if auth is required or not? A lot of just the landscape of payer guidelines, the types of plans, the geographies, all of those things, it almost becomes you don't know which procedures require authorizations, which don't. So if you can determine those in a timely manner, you're able to schedule a patient and have them seen sooner than later. So one area of focus for us is around auth determination, where we've deployed AI, and that's been in use for many years in certain specialties, and we can continue to expand that. That gives our customers near real-time responses back on whether an auth is required or not. And that's a constantly improving engine that looks at the results. We do audits and make sure that a high degree of accuracy and continue to expand coverage around that thing. When you go further down the prior authorization workflow, how can AI help in terms of initiating authorizations? There again, we've started to layer in automation and leverage AI to determine what are the clinical guidelines required to initiate an authorization, and AI can interpret the clinician notes, can interpret the clinical guidelines, and accordingly assist in submitting authorizations. The next step is around the follow-up of the authorization, which is a relatively simpler process where automation again helps by having the right payer connections, having RPA and attended automation. So less so around AI there, just making that's just a status check, but it's about a combination of using all of those approaches along with the humans within the loop to get the result, which is what I mentioned at the top of that is have the auth on file so you don't have to reschedule or turn away a patient.
Yeah, seems like a simple solution, but it's very complicated, right? I mean,
Yep, you're always working at it.
exactly,
And
exactly.
nothing's ever perfect. There's errors along the way. So it's just a matter of reducing those error rates every step of the way and over time.
Mhm. Nice, nice. So, and another thing you also kind of now shifting kind of to the back end, with AR management, maybe even denials management as well. You also discussed AI powered AR prioritization, where AI predicts which claims are more like. How does this differ from traditional claim follow up strategies, and how does it help providers improve cash flow?
Yeah, so I mean, as you know, Stuart, we started on our journey on the front end much earlier, pretty much at the inception of Infinix. Our approach around prior authorization eligibility. So we had a lot of learnings from that, and what the one thing we recognized was that playbook can be deployed on the back end as well around AR and denial management. Consistently, what we saw was across most of our customers, AR teams were always under resourced. There were more claims to follow up on, chase with the payers than there were a number of people to do it. So that then started to transition to, okay, I'll just follow up on the claims that are most important to me. And that very dramatically, it was open to interpretation. It was very, very subjective. Some people deployed that, okay, I'm not going to chase the smaller claims because the likelihood it'll probably cost me more to go chase those than the cost that I'm going to recover out of those. And so you set these arbitrary rules. You start to develop sort of tribal knowledge around certain pairs on how they react and accordingly train people to do certain things. And then when you take a step back, and that's kind of where we started our journey, we were just like, there's just layers and layers of rules that we've established and kind of forgotten why they came into being in the first place. So our approach around why we believe AI can be transformative in that business function for our CM around AR and denial management is we just feed the AI the information, the historical data, and it learns and defines the prioritization. It shouldn't be that a claim under $100 shouldn't be followed up. If the likelihood of it getting collected is high and it requires minimal effort, it should be pursued. And so we try to really strongly recommend that please don't create these rules, let the machine prioritize the work order, and then bring in human specialists as and when needed. You shouldn't need humans to do any AR follow-up. We should be able to build the right automations there. So the humans should really just be coming in for the very high-end cognition tasks that perhaps AI is not getting to as yet. But again, the common theme there is AI plus humans can really make a significant impact in AR inventories across the board.
Yeah, and that's fascinating because I know if if I'm a CFO, of a health system or administrator of a practice, then that I'm thinking cost to collect, right? And so you mentioned that it's like, hey, is this going to be worth chasing because that cost of collect is overhanging when you're looking at it's anywhere from $25 to $118 in some instances on average to rework a claim. And so that they're kind of cognizant of that. So from what you just described, the whole process of inserting AI, the AI agent into this helps lower that cost. You probably see this significant decrease in that cost in and of itself. So it does make it worth to chase those lower hanging fruit, so to speak.
Absolutely. And I mean, we're all about more cash collections. I think the cost of collection, how we view it, is relatively low across the industry, that we really should just be chasing additional dollars. And the more we do it, the cost of collection is going to continue to come down. So it has to be looked at from both sides, that can you have a revenue uplift while reducing cost to collect?
Exactly. So I noticed that your article closes with a challenge, and I like it. So I'm going to quote it. It basically states, "Will you be ahead of the curve or struggling to catch up?" And it's almost like that challenge or that anthem, so to speak. Kind of a war cry, if you will, because we are at war with payers. So what should healthcare leaders focus on now to ensure they're using AI effectively in their revenue cycle operations?
Yeah, so what I recommend to everybody I speak with around this, right, is don't wait for a solution that solves every single problem that's on your list. Start with the baby steps. If you can improve a small business task even 10-20%, that's a win. And why I say that's a win is, on many accounts, maybe it doesn't move the needle much in the overall scheme of things, but you've started to change the mindset of the organization. You've exposed what technology can do to a broader set of people, and you'll have more and more join you in your journey along the way. So there was a CEO I was talking to a few months ago, and healthcare CEO, and he's like, I'm consistently pushing my team to say, don't wait for it to be 90% accurate or 100% accurate. If it's more than 50, start a pilot, set a goal, set success metrics that we can get there. And it usually means there's a lot of work to get there, but once you get there, it's transformative. So I consistently advocate for that. Is every business process is up for re-engineering. Every business process, probably there is some technology that can help. Try it out. It may work, it may not work. If it doesn't, iterate, move on. But I think humanity has taught us that we can't just say it's not going to work or wait around for it. I think it's about just continually try to improve ourselves every step of the way, do better today than we did yesterday.
Right. I couldn't agree more. It's almost like a paralysis by analysis kind of a concept, or seeking that perfection, because it's never going to be perfect. So
Exactly. I mean, in a changing landscape, it's difficult to be perfect, but as long as we are adapting, I think we're making progress.
because it's agile. It's almost like that analogy that someone once told me. It's like, an airplane, when you get on an airplane and travel, because we all travel, we're in this industry, and you get on a plane, it's not a straight line that it's flying.
Yep.
It's zigzagging. So the pilot's there to make course corrections as you go, but you still get to your destination. And
Mhm.
most times you get there on time, most times.
Most times.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of this, and I'm thinking of when you were describing that, it's like, yeah, it's just, you just you gotta get the lift off. If you never get the lift off, you're never going to get there. So
Yeah.
start there.
Break that inertia.
Yep, exactly. Well, and that's all the questions I have. This is the moment where we're going to turn it over to the audience and see if there's any questions that they may have. But I do have one question here. It says AI is evolving quickly. How can smaller healthcare providers implement AI without a large IT team or budget? Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and I think that's where you have to lean on partners and vendor partners who bring the technology to the table. We see that, I mean, surprisingly, even large health systems are, again, understaffed in IT. Very often when we are talking to them to deploy our solutions, the operational leaders, the rev cycle leaders are all on board to say, let's go pilot this or try this out or implement it, but the IT teams are backlogged with a variety of different tasks, and it takes forever. So I think for smaller organizations, it's less so about the IT, because those are things that you can overcome relatively quickly, about the integration, because that's where the post that the vendor partner really brings in the value to you. And so it's about really defining your workflow and where you need the help. And I think I've said this many times before, is defining the success. What does success look like? Recognizing that you won't get it the very first day of deployment, but if that's what the North Star is, that's where we want to go. Aligning internal team members, championing the solution along with the partner you bring into the organization, and you'll get there. You'd be surprised how quickly you'll get there as well, because we're all working towards that common goal. So defining success is probably more important than any of the other things.
Yeah, point well taken. Excellent. I do have another one here. What's the biggest misconception about AI in revenue cycle management that you think needs to be corrected?
I think I kind of talked about it earlier, right? The biggest misconception is somewhat of the current hype cycle we're in, which AI is going to completely solve every problem out there. AI is an amazing technology. It's learning off of a lot what we've built over the years. So it'll obviously learn a lot faster than humans. But if the humans quite haven't figured it out, it's still going to take a little bit longer to get there. So it
Right.
isn't a solution that's going to completely solve every single problem in RCM. We have to look at it and give different functions within RCM the right dose of AI.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Awesome. Well, that's all the questions I see. JD, thank you for joining us as always and taking the time to address these. I know that AI is all the rage and everyone's so curious about it. It's good to have different insights, especially from you with all the experience that you've had in the tech world. We'll definitely have you on again for sure.
Great. Well, it was great connecting, and happy to answer more questions and follow up on this.
Thanks for joining us. Subscribe to get notified when our next episode is online. For more information for how we can help you increase reimbursements at your company, check out our website at infinix.com. That's INFINX.com.